much. Well, one of the biggest demonstrations is in Rome, where there have been reports that riot police have fired tear gas at protesters. Let's speak to our Rome correspondent, David Willey. He joins us now on the line. David, tell us what's been happening there.
Well, the march began peacefully enough. There were a lot of police along the route which leads past the Colosseum. That's the ancient Roman amphitheatre in the centre of Rome. And one group was carrying a cardboard coffin with the name of the Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi on it. But after a couple of hours, it turned violent. Small groups of protesters, clad mostly in black, joined in the demonstrations, and they set cars on fire and smashed shop windows and attacked ATM machines.
So who are these people dressed in black? They do seem to be somewhat at odds with the ambitions of most of the protesters.
Well, indeed, you can really divide them into two groups. The demonstration has now arrived at the Piazza San Giovanni, St. John Lateran in Rome, where there's to be speeches and so on. And it's quite clear that there are two distinct groups of protesters, the peaceful demonstrators and those who are intent on violence. There have been some rather ugly scenes with the police using baton charges and hosing down the violent protesters with water cannon and launching tear gas grenades.
And tell us how much notice the Italian government is taking, because, of course, Silvio Berlusconi has many of his own personal problems to be dealing with, as well as the national ones.
He does indeed. I think everyone was anticipating that following the vote in Parliament yesterday, when Mr. Berlusconi scraped home with a confidence vote, but only just scraped home, that there would be protests. And I think we're going to look forward to more demonstrations as the weeks go on, unless Mr. Berlusconi does decide to step down, which, of course, for the moment, he says he totally refuses to do.
David, for the moment, thank you very much. David Willey, our Rome correspondent, on the line. Well, let's return to Joe Lynham, who's still here with me in the studio while we carry on looking at those pictures of the trouble that flared in Rome. We're hearing there from David Willey of how the Italian government is viewing these protests. Joe, what about other governments in other parts of the world? Are they troubled by what they see on their streets?
At this stage, no, because it is still a developing situation. But if, for example, these protests continue and the number of the people that attend them continue, then politicians can't ignore them, especially if they're on their streets and they have to send in the riot squad to get rid of them, as is in the case of Rome. So they can't be ignored. But it is the real interesting point is that these aren't, with the exception of the black bloc that David was referring to there, these aren't the usual connection of anarchists and hippies and communists and conscientious objectors. This is a more middle-class collection of people that have an education, that have prospects, but can't find work. And they're very disaffected and very disenchanted with the current regime because the austerity measures, which they say is the result of banking activity, is being enacted on them, and they have no future as a result of this. This is not unconnected to the UK Uncut movement from last year, when there were a lot of very public profile protests against specific PLCs, particularly large companies, but they're not necessarily the same groups. Just similar middle-class people who are very disaffected by what's going on around the world.
Are they clear about their demands, about what they want their governments to do? Because some groups in some places seem to have very concrete ideas and others seem a lot more vague.
Yeah, that's because the very nature of it. It's a ground-up thing that started on the internet, started on Twitter, and it started on Facebook, and you will always attract certain strands of every society. As we've seen in Rome, they're attracting the anarchists as part of their movement, and there is the danger that if this protest movement accelerates in the UK, that they too will attract the black hoodie wearing guys that we saw on the streets of London in March this year, and that they would be infected by that group. One never knows what the message is specifically because it comes from such a wide variety of people.
Joe, again, thank you very much.